let's get started, everybody. The library of Aguascalientes, January 16th, 1995. To the weekly magazine Proceso, to the national newspaper El Financiero, to the national newspaper La Jornada, the local newspaper of San Cristobal de las Casa Tempo. Sirs, communiques are flying about indicating that the winds have changed directions. Again, you are threatening us with unemployment and hope that this time it's true. They tell me that Mr. Robledo Rincon has sequestered himself and his armed guards and the same name, State Public Security Police, somewhere in the governor's palace. Sorry, buddy. Even though the upheaval of those who oppose the popular will in Chiapas is limited to 4 neighborhoods in its old capital, Tuxtla Gutiérrez, they could be offered a dignified out. Let them explain where the money came from to arm the white guards who assassinate indigenous people in the Chiapas countryside. Perhaps it comes from the, quote, peace agreements, end quote, of San Cristobal, money that never reached the poor of this state of the Mexican Southeast, because we're still called Mexico? No. Vale, good health to you, and a bit of hope to foretell tomorrow. From the mountains of the Mexican Southeast, Subcomandante and Sergeante Marcos. P.S. Which remembers a previous dawn and a cold within. One night of tanks, planes, and helicopters. I was in the library of Aguascalientes. I was alone, surrounded by books and a cold rain that forced the use of the ski mask, not to hide from others' eyes, but to hide from the cold. I sat in one of the few chairs that were not broken and contemplated a languid abandonment of the place. Like other dawns, this one was empty of people while the library began the complicated ceremonies of its unveiling. The heavy bookcases began a movement much like the disordered dance. The books exchanged places and pages, and in the back and forth of book fell, silent, unhurt, exposed by a single page. I did not pick it up, avoiding the dancing shelves. I got near enough to read. The library existed, albeit tyranno. It is a truth whose immediate corollary is the eternal future of the world, and no one can reasonably doubt. Humanity, the imperfect librarian, can be a work of luck or a malevolent demiurge. I don't know what this word is. Let me find out what this word is real quick. It's going to take me a little bit. Come on, read out loud.
The library exists ab eterno. It is a truth whose immediate corollary is the eternal future of the world, that no one can reasonably doubt. Humanity, the imperfect librarian, can be a work of luck or of malevolent demiurge.
Demiurge. There you go. The universe with its elegant dosage of shelves full of enigmatic tomes. Indefatigable. I gotta look up this word too, everybody. Let me go look up this word real quick. ladders for the travelers and latrine for the pseudodary user can only be a work of a god. The imps affirm that the babble is normal in the library, and that the reasonable, even a humble and pure coherence, is almost a miraculous exception. The library is limitless and temporary. If an internal voyager traverses it in any direction, he would prove that at the end of the centuries, the same volumes are repeated in the same disorder, which once repeated would be an order. My loneliness becomes joyful that with that elegant hope. Leveca Alvarez del Toledo has observed that the vast library is useless. Rigorously, one would only need one volume of common format, printed in 9 or 10 editions, which would consist of an infinite number of infinitely thin pages. The handling of this silky portfolio will not be comfortable. Each page attempts to unfold in other analogies in a inconceivable central page would not have an opposite side. Jorge Luis Borges, The Library of Babel. My loneliness becomes joyful with that elegant hope. I repeat as I slip away from the library. Agua Scalantes is deserted. I am tempted to say abandoned, quote unquote, even when a fox bounds past me towards the kitchen. I walk to the commencement, the cemented clearing, and sit next to the palm of hope that the flowers that die in other lands may live in this one. The library continues its metamorphosis. Noises, creaks, and something that I imagine to be limits escape through doors and windows. Did I say doors? I lie. The library has no doors. It has 2 holes that are impossible to define. There are those who insist that they are there to allow one to enter, and some who say they allow one to exit, while others argue that they allow the library to breathe. Only a few suspects that they are for gorging on people, animal, and hopes. The library of Agua Scalantes is the beginning and the end of the spiral. It has no defined entrance nor exit. I mean to say that in the gigantic spiral that Tacho describes in order to explain the architectural intent of the Aguascalientes. The library is its inception and conclusion, the safe house that, quote, keeps the organization's greatest secrets, end quote, is at the other end and the beginning of the whirlwind. I run my eyes over the gigantic volute to which all constructions are aligned, and I imagine that only from the special satellite can one appreciate the spiral that, quote, beckons from the jungle, end quote. My gaze runs from the safe house to the library, which now gives out a phosphorescent blue and a continuous Horace noise. The library, even in unimaginable by day, it's inhabited by children. They come not because of the books. Eva tells me the children believe there are multicolored balloons hidden there. Apparently, no one ever finds them because the children end up making color drawings. Lately, there are many helicopters and planes. I mean, not just in the sky of Agua Scalantes, these, but also flat in the children's drawings. The purple, red, and green in the drawings repeat themselves too much for my liking. And yellow seems to limit itself to the sun, which these days is extinguished by the gray of the sky. A night the library shelters and agitates aggressors of a law of professionals of violence, like the one who writes this. They gaze at the shelves filled with books, looking for something that is missing, and which there, sure, was once there. The library was the only thing in all of Agua Scalantes that the Democratic National Convention considered their property, and it sometimes has books. The caravans made efforts to put in electricity, bookshelves, books, tables, chairs, and an old computer that was the virtue of never being used. The rest of Agua Scalantes has remained abandoned since the 9th day of August 1994. Every once in a while, Mr. L. Bruce, Y.L. Sanquo, will make an effort to patch up the tents for the less and less frequent parties. Now the library remains in silence, and the phosphorescence concentrated to a single point at the center of the room turns emerald green. I move carefully to one of the windows. The green light was blinding, and it took some time for me to get used to it. In it I saw all of a sudden that the blue sails of Agua Scalantes caught a favorable wind. I turned towards the captain's quarters, but it was empty. The sea thrust its waves against the keel, and the creaking of the anchor chain could be heard above the wind. I climbed starboard and took the rubber in order to free it from the spiral's labyrinth. Was it leaving or arriving? Was it leaving or arriving? The emerald of the library ceased to glow. P.S. Which repeats what was told to him from the lands of Zapata. Cruelty in Uyamel Chatumo. 10 years after Alonso Dalvia was flung from the Villa Real de Chatumo, the rash Francisco del Montagu again considered the conquest of the province of Yamal Chutamal, 1543 to 1545. He commissioned Gaspar Pancho Melcharo, his son, and 30 soldiers for this action. Thus they began to desolate war of Yomel Chutamal. Can't say it. A report of the era stated Mayan men and women in equal measures were killed with clubs or thrown into the lake with weights tied to their feet so they would drown. Wild dogs used in the war tore to pieces these defenseless indigenous peoples. The Spanish considered them animals, and they dragged and beat them like vile beasts. It is said that the Pachucos cut off many hands, ears, and noses from many indigenous peoples. As you can see, the bad government started many years ago, and its methods are somewhat passé. Meanwhile, I look worriedly at the prominent nose, now red and cold because of the cutting off noses. Greetings to, oh my gosh, I'm not doing good at reading today. Greetings to the pipe of cat, catapult. And always remember that. In catapel, oh my gosh, I cannot say these names. Acid oxypolazine in Mexicoyot. I can't say these words. I can't say these words. Look, it's I can't say these words. Sorry, everybody. Vale, once again, the submarine from the high seas. Sorry, everybody. I'm not doing good with reading today. The retreat is making us also scratch the sky. February 20th, 1995. To the National Weekly newspaper magazine, Proceso. To the national newspaper, El Financiero. To the national newspaper, La Jornada. To the local newspaper, in San Cristobal de la Casa, Chiapas Tempo. To the national and international press, dear sirs. Here are the communiques. Everything looks so dire. We are on the verge. It is amazing. It is amazing. The cynicism with which they deny what is evident. The decisions to seek the military solution. Us? Well, the heavens hang so low over our heads. We can almost scratch the sky. It's the first time that something falls up into the sky. I fell. Vale, health to you, and well-sharpened knife to tear through so much darkness from the mountains of the southeastern Mexico. Subcomandante and Sergeant Marcos, P.S., which narrates the 15th of February 1995, 6 day of the retreat. We recommend that it be read before each meal. It is an excellent dieting regime. At dawn on the 15th, we were going to drink our urine. Ooh, I say we were going to drink. Because we didn't do it. We all began to vomit after the first swallow. Previously, there had been a discussion. Although we had agreed that each person should drink his or her own urine. Camilio suggested we wait until dawn and let the night cool the urine in the canteen so we could drink it. Imagining it to be soda. Oh, that sucks. In defense of his suggestions, Camilio argued that he had learned on the radio that imagination made anything possible. I opposed the idea, suggesting that time would only make the odor stronger and that the radio had not been too objective lately. My other self argued that let it rest could help the ammonia settle to the bottom. It must be the adrenaline, I said, surprised that the skepticism was my own and not my other self's. Finally, we decided to take a sip, all at the same time, to see what would happen. I don't know who began the concert, but almost immediately we began to vomit that we had ingested and also that we hadn't. We were left even more dehydrated, prostrate on the ground, like dunces, stinking of urine. I think that our image was hardly soldier-like. Hours before sunup, and sudden rain washed over us, alleviating our thirst and our spirits. With the first light of the 6th day, we continued walking. In the afternoon, we reached the outskirts of a small village. Camilio went to ask for something to eat. He returned with a little fried pork, hard and cold. We ate it right there without any modesty. In a few minutes, the cramps began. The diarrhea was memorable. We were strewn at the foot of the small wooden hill. A federal troops patrol passed us by a mere 500 meters away. They didn't find us because God is grand. The smell of shit and urine could be smelled kilometers away. P.S. Which reiterates its rebellion. They can do it again. They can do in all the villages what they did in Guadalupe, Taipaquiac. For each resident children or adult, they brought in 10 soldiers. For each horse, a war tank. For each chicken, an armored vehicle. In a total, 5,000 soldier patrols a deserted village and, quote, protect a slew of dogs and animals belonging to no one. Let them do that in all the autonomous communities, everywhere, in all the ranches. Let them fill the whole state of Chiapas with soldiers. Despite everything and everyone, the mountain of the southeastern Mexico will continue to be territory in rebellion against a bad government. This will continue being Zapatista territory and it will be forever. P.S. which clarifies and rectifies, it was not the EZLN who broke off the dialogue and reinstated the war. It was the government. It was not the EZLN who feigned political willingness while preparing a military attack and betrayal. It was the government. It was not the EZLN who detained and tortured civilians. It was the government. It wasn't the EZLN who schmurdered. It was the government. It was not the EZLN who bombed and razed communities. It was the government. It was not the EZLN who raped indigenous women. It was the government. It was not the EZLN who robbed and plundered the campesinos. It was the government. It was not the EZLN who betrayed the will of the entire nation to find a political solution to the conflict. It was the government. P.S. which points out incongruences in the investigation of the Attorney General. If the SUP had received political and military training for the Sandinistas, he would have already organized a piñata with the recovered properties, and he would have expelled all of those who have criticized it from the organization. If the SUP had received training from the Salvadorians, he would have already made a gift of his weapon to Cristina. If the SUP had received aid from the Russians, he would have already bombed Chechnya. Guadalupe, Taipaquiac. Besides, what other guerrilla army, quote, of the millennia, quote, fundamentalist and headed by, quote, whites from the university, he carried out military actions like the EZLN did in January 1994 and again in December 1994, breaking through the military blockade. What other guerrilla force would agree to sit down and dialogue with only 50 days after taking up arms? What other guerrilla forces has appealed not to the proletariat as a historical vanguard, but to a civic society that struggles for democracy? What other guerrilla force would step aside in order not to interfere in the electoral process? What other guerrilla force has convened the National Democratic Movement, civics and peaceful, so that armed struggle becomes useless? What other guerrilla force asks its base of support about what it should do before doing it? What other guerrilla force would struggle to achieve the democratic space and not take power? What other guerrilla force would rely more on words than on bullets? P.S. Please send the responses to the supposedly disappeared SESINEN National Center of Investigation and Security, so that it can help think in a modern way. Yes, to the CISEN. The Attorney General is only a pimp paying the ruling class. P.S. Which points itself, quote, special investigations on the sub case, and invites the national and international civic society to be the jury and to pronounce the sentence, being such and such hour, and on such and such day, on such and such month, in the current year. Standing before this PS is a man of indefinite age, between 5 and 65 years old, his face covered with one of those garments that appears to be a sock with holes in it, and which the gringos call a ski mask, and Latin Americans call it pasamontañas. Sorry. There are two visible features on the face, one which, after several squeezes, we deduce is the nose. The other, judging by the emanations. I don't know how to say this word, everybody. Hold on. Not there. Here. I'll be right back. Emanations of smoke and the smell of tobacco. Could be a pipe, like the ones used by sailors, intellectuals, pirates, and fugitives from justice. Sworn to say the truth and nothing but the truth. The individuals in questions says his name is Marcos Montes de la Selvia, the son of Don Antonio or Donna Juanita, brother to young Antonio, Ramona, and Susana, uncle to Tonata, Beto, Eva, and Heriberto. Speaking before me, he declares himself to be in full use of his physical and mental faculties, and without any pressure, other than 60,000 federal soldiers who are looking for him, dead or alive. States and confesses the following. First, that he was born in the guerrilla camp called Agua Fera in the Lancando jungle, Chiapas, early one morning on August 1984, and that he was born January 1st, 1994, and reborn successively on June 10th, 1994, on August 8th, 1994, the 19th of December, 1994, the 10th of February, 1995, and each day, and each hour, and each minute, and each second, since what day up to this moment in which I am making these statements. Second, that in addition to his name, he was the following aliases: Subcomandante, Subco, Marquetos, Panchi Sup, son of a, and others, that the modesty of this PS public prosecutor prevents it from writing. Third, the owner of the voice confesses that since having been born, he has conspired against the shadows that darkened the Mexican sky. Fourth, the owner of the voice confesses that before being born, being able to possess everything in order to have nothing, he decided to possess nothing in order to have everything. Fifth, the owner of the voice confesses that in the company of other Mexicans, the great majority of them, Mayan indigenous peoples, they've decided to make a certain piece of paper live up its words, a piece of paper that they teach about in school, which lists the rights of the Mexican citizens, and which is called quote, the political constitutions of the United Mexican States, end quote. The owner of the Voice points out that in Article 39 of this paper, it is written that people have the right to change the government. At this point, the PS, anxious to defend his own rights, orders that the subversive paper to be confiscated and burned without giving it a glance. Having done this, he continues to take the statement from the individual with a prominent nose and a polluting pipe. The owner of the Voice confesses that, not being able to exercise this right by peaceful and legal means, he decides, together with his accomplices, the owner of the Voice refers to them as brothers, to take up arms against the supreme government and to shout enough to the lie that says the owner of the Voice rules our destinies. The PS could not help but be terrified in the face of such unusual blasphemy, and was shaken with a mere thought of being left without a handout. 6. The owner of the Voice confesses that, facing the choice between comfort and responsibility, he always chooses responsibility. Choose responsibility. This statement evinced and disapproval of the people present at all preliminary hearings, and the instructive reflex that brought the PS hand to cover his wallet protectively. 7th, the owner of the Voice confesses that he has always been irreverent concerning all supreme truths, except with those that originated from being human. The owner of the Voice declares them to be dignity, democracy, liberty, and justice. A murmur of disagreement ran through the Holy Inquisition. The office of the special investigator. 8th, the owner of the Voice confesses that he had tried to threaten him, to buy him off, to corrupt him, to put him in jail, to murder him, and that they have failed to intimidate him, buy him off, jail him, or unalive him. Up until now, the investigating PS points out threateningly. 9th, the owner of the Voice confessed that since he was born, he decided that he preferred to die before turning over his dignity to those who have made lies and crime a modern religion. Such an impractical thought earned a cynical look from the people present. 10th, the owner of the Voice confesses that since then he had decided to be humble with the humble, and to be arrogant with the powerful. The PS added irreverent to the charges that were being made against the owner of the Voice. 11th, the owner of the Voice confesses that he has believed and still believes in human beings, in their capacity to try indefatigably to be a little better each day. He confesses that among the human race, he has a special affection for the Mexican race, and that he has believed, still believes, and will always believe that Mexico is something more than 6 letters and an underpriced product of the international market. 12th, the owner of the Voice confesses that he believes firmly that the bad government everywhere has to be brought down by all means. He confesses that he believes that the new political, economic, and social relation has to be created among all Mexicans, and later on among all human beings. These promiscuous intentions might the PS investigators shiver. 13th, the owner of the Voice confessed that to his dying days he will dedicate himself to fight for his beliefs. 14th, the owner of the Voice confesses that in a small egotistical act, he will dedicate the last second of his life to unaliving himself. 15th, the owner of the Voice confesses that he was completely bored with this interrogation. This earned him a severe pyramid from the PS interrogator, who explained to him that the case will continue until the Supreme Government finds another tale with which to entertain itself. After these confessions, the owner of the voice was exhorted to spontaneously declare himself innocent or guilty in the following series of accusations. To each accusations, the owner of the voice responded. The whites accuse him of being dark, guilty. Dark people ones accused him of being white, guilty. The authentic causes him to being indigenous, guilty. The treasonous indigenous accuse him of being mestizos, guilty. The machos accuse him of being feminine, guilty. The feminists accuse him of being macho, guilty. The communists accuse him of being an anarchist, guilty. The anarchists accuse him of being orthodox, guilty. The Anglos accuse him of being Chicano, guilty. The anti-Semites accuse him of being pro-Jewish, guilty. The Jewish people accuse him of being pro-Arab, guilty. The Europeans accuse him of being Asiatic, guilty. The government officials accuse him of being an opportunist, guilty. The reformists accuse him of being an extremist, a radical, guilty. The radicals accuse him of being a reformist, guilty. The historical vanguard accuse him of appealing to civic society and not to the proletariat, guilty. The civic society accuse him of disturbing their tranquility, guilty. The stock exchange accuses him of ruining their breakfast, guilty. The government accuses him of increasing the consumption of an acid by government agencies, guilty. The serious one accuses of being a jokester, guilty. The adults accuse him of being a child, guilty. The children accuse him of being an adult, guilty. The Orthodox leftists accuse him of not condemning the homosexuals and lesbians, guilty. The theoreticians accuse him of being a practitioner, guilty. The practitioners accuse him of being a theorist, guilty. Everyone accused him of everything bad that has happened, guilty. Not having anything else to declare is the preliminary hearing. The PS investigator ends the session and smiles, imagining the congratulations and the check that he will receive from his bosses. PS, which talks about what was heard on February 16th, 1995, on the afternoon of the 7th day of the retreat. Quote, and why don't we attack instead of retreating? Camilio throws my way halfway up the hill, precisely when I am concentrating intensely on breathing and on not falling into the ravine at our sides. I don't respond immediately and make signs that he would continue climbing. At the top of the hill, the three of us sit down. Night comes to the mountain before it reaches the sky, and in the semi-darkness of this indecisive hour, in which light isn't the same and the shadows waver, we hear something in the distance. I tell Camillo to listen carefully. What do you hear? Crickets. Leaves the wind, responds my other self. No, pay attention, I insist. Now it is Camillo who responds. I hear voices very far away. A boom, 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 like a drum. From over there, Camillo points to the west. Yes, exactly, I tell him, and intervenes my other self. It is civic society calling out that there can't be war, that there must be that words, not weapons, should be taken, I explain. And the boom, 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 insists Camillo. Those are their drums that call for peace. There are thousands, many thousands, hundreds of thousands of them beating, and the government is not listening. Then, even though it sits before them, we all the way from here, we have to listen to them. We have to answer their call. We cannot turn a deaf ear like the government is doing. We have to listen. We have to avoid the war until there is no other choice. And then, muses my other self, then we fight. I tell Camilo, when, he insists, when they cease to call, when they tire, that will be the black hour in which we will have to talk. Fight, says my other self. I insist. Everything we do is for them. If we fight, it's for them. If we stop fighting, it's for them. In the end, they will win. If we are annihilated, they will have the satisfaction of having done everything possible to avoid our demise, to avoid war. For this reason, they rose up, and now they will not be held back. What's more, they are the custodians of the flag that they hold in their hands. If we live, they will have the satisfaction of having saved us, to having avoided the war and having shown us that they are better than that they can take care of the flag. Whether we live or die, they live, and we become stronger. Everything for them, nothing for us. Camilo said that he preferred his version. For them, nothing. For us, everything. P.S. In which it resumes its nocturnal delirium. Oblivion, that distant lark, is the reason our faceless wandering. To kill oblivion with a little memory, we cover our chests with lead and hope. If in some unimplorable fight the wind joins our path, I will strip you of so much covering, and of the mask of sweet deceit, and with lips and skin make a memory that of tomorrow. Better for this reason, a message goes from the earth to the concrete. Listen well. And here it is. Here comes the poem, everybody. Before I get started on the poem, I'm gonna look back just a little bit. All right. As an imperfect actor on the stage, who with his fear is but besides his part, or some fierce thing replete with too much rage, whose strength's abundance weakens his own heart, so I, for fear of trust, forget to say the perfect ceremony of love right, and in my own love strengthen, seem to decay, an errage, I can't say this word, with burden of my own love my own love's might. Oh, let my books be then the eloquence and unintelligent passengers of my speaking breast, who plead for love and look for recompense, more than the tongue that more hath, more expressed. Oh, learn to read what silent love with writ, to hear with eyes belong to love's fine wit. William Shakespeare, sonnet, that's 33, I think. Veil, amber lark, don't look for us beneath your flight, but up above, yes, where our pain has lifted us to the sun, where hope reigns. P.S. Which can make a gift of nothing on this birthday. Heriberto's birthday is on the 5th of March. They say he will be 4 years old and enter his 5th year. Heriberto walks the mountains while soldiers live in his home and tanks sits in his patio. The toys that the Operation Toys brought him on the feast of three wise men are now in the hands of some general, or being analyzed by an attorney general in search of some secret strategy. Despite all of Herberto's preparation for the event of February 10th, the invasion of the federal soldiers, at 0 hours he left behind his favorite toy, a little car sitting on top Herberto's robe around the cement patio where the coffee beans were put to dry, and made believe he was a driver. They tell me that Herberto consoles himself, saying that his little car wouldn't work in the mountain. Herberto asks his mom if he can ever have his car again, and if the sup is ever again going to give him chocolates. Herberto was asked his mom why the war from last year returned, why his car was left behind. Why? Asked Herberto. His mom does not respond and continues to walk with the boy, and the pain weighing on his shoulders. P.S. Which remembers and recites from memory verses of Antonio Machado that refer to different things, but which are fitting now. This is number one. In my heart, I had a passion's thorn. One day I pulled it out. Now I cannot feel my heart. Sharp golden thorns. Who will feel it? Pierce the heart again. Number two. Last night I dreamed I heard God shout at me, "Watch out!" When it was God who slept, and I who yelled, "Wake up!" P.S. Which bleeds unendingly. A wound I carry in my chest. It bleeds wheat, and there is no bread. It alleviates the hunger. The sup from the top of the hill, seeing to the south, to the west, how the sun brings down a fading beam. All right. 48. Where we at? We're doing good. I hope everybody's okay. Doing all right. Here we go. Death has paid a visit. February 25th, 1995, to the national magazine Proceso, to the national daily newspaper La Guardada, the national daily newspaper El Financiero, to the local daily newspaper of San Cristobal de la Casa, Chiapas Tempo, to the national and the international press. Sir, diverse communiques are on the way. Let's see for when and how. Here the cold and the military blockade bears down. The tobacco now smells and hurts of death. What's going on outside? Are you happy with the $20 billion? And who's going to pay it back? Vail Health to you and one of those piggy banks to save hopes. To size of an old cent. One is a sacred, scarce as the other. From the mountains of the southern eastern Mexico, Subcomandante Sergeant Marcos. Here we go. And to continue with the favorite section, the recurring postscript of transgressions and illegality, P.S. which tells what it read in the sup's notebook on February 14th, day of love and friendship. Here I go, breaking myself to pieces and patching body and spirit. Today I broke a piece of my shoulder. I broke just like that and sounded like a dry branch. Ooh, under a boot. Ooh, hardly a crack, just a dull light thud on the floor. I picked it up and I replaced it to the best of my knowledge of guerrilla autonomy. Atomy. Yeah. I tied it up with a reed and continued walking. Yesterday it was a piece off my arm, my right thigh, that broke and fell. I'm not losing hope that a good piece of this impertinent nose will fall off and leave me with a profile, perhaps less, oh my gosh, aerodynamic. Okay, good. But more manageable. Not because I want to contradict the Attorney General on the story of a man from Tampico, but because it wouldn't deform my ski mask so much. Yesterday the 13th, death dressed the olive green came within 10 or 15 meters of where we were. I told Camilio that it was 20 meters, but when the soldiers left, he went down and measured exactly 10 meters to where the patrol of federal soldiers had passed. Now, like a year ago, every second is a flight between life and death, heads or tails. Left comes up or death comes up. Heads or tails, like the Cantinflas movie with Medel, where he sang that song that goes, quote, "What are you missing, woman? What are you missing?" And the Marsilio explains to Cantinflas that it means woman from our mother Eve on, because in the first global configuration, the Cantinflas responds with, "A woman is like a flower. A flower has to be watered. When one waters it, well, one waters it." And despite Cantinflas, the coin makes circles in the air, and we advancing slowly drag ourselves along without water or food, but with mud and with enough thorns to pay the total sum of the Mexican eternal debt. If a price were to set on them in the stock market, quote, "but they don't have any value," Camilio says to me, quote, "neither does our blood," end quote, adds my other self, who insists of a suitcase carry skepticism everywhere and does not appear to tire. I noticed that my senses begin to dull. On that day, 10 meters from death, I was leaning against a rock. A bit by bit, I lowered myself, and without making a sound, I cocked my gun and pointed it towards the sound. I was thinking. The only sound was of time standing still with my fingertip on the trigger, with neither fear nor courage, as if I were seeing everything from outside, as if I was very tired, as if I had seen this scene many times before in a movie, in history, in life and death. Dulled, I say, quote, "like a machine," says my other self. Camilio doesn't say a thing and only murmurs that there are 30 soldiers only 10 meters away, and that we were three, and that according to higher mathematics, each of us had to take out 10 to come out alive. Camilio said that he made that calculation. I didn't calculate anything. All I saw was me with my finger on the trigger, immobile, like a single still repeating to access in the endless movie. Camilio didn't study at Oxford or in Massachusetts. Is that how it's spelled? He barely got through second grade in a village, in the jungle, and learned mathematics in the mountains. Myself, I was thinking about a wonderful pun with my finger on the trigger. But my other self told me that this wasn't the time for sexual fantasies. Ooh. Did I say, quote, "a year ago"? I lie, it was more than a year ago. It was last January, a year ago in February. We were in the Cathedral of San Cristobal de las Casas, talking of peace. Today we are in the jungle talking of war. Why? Has someone asked that man why? Why did he trick us? Why did he feign a commitment to coming to just a political agreement, and then unleashed a terror that now escapes his hands? Well then, I talked to him, but really I talked to Camilio and to his page in my notebook about how the body parts are falling, and I don't understand why Camilio is not going to answer, because he was falling asleep beneath the sunflowers. The helicopter above and the check of the blades were all around us, and remember that check in Tozitzel means ass, and from the ass of the helicopters, I return again to my notebook. My other self says to me, biting my pipe, quote, "It's not us. It's no use. No one is going to read it." And the notebook, for a change, doesn't say anything, and lets me tell how a small crack first appeared on my body, and now it deepens, and even a piece breaks off and falls. I try to put it back again and tie it with a reed, and it doesn't hurt. I am not worried about that. But what if I happen to put it on the wrong side? What if it belongs on the right side and I put it on the left side, or vice versa? What political implications would this error have? Clearly, until now, it has not been a problem, because the two sides have not fallen off at the same time. My other self approaches to read this last line and murmurs, quote, "No one is going to read it," end quote. And the feigns sleep with the helicopters surrendered their place to the crickets. Today is the day of love and friendship. Here there is no woman other than death, and no other love other than her mortal kiss. P.S. which foresees a reproach. Anyway, I prefer to die here rather than have to confront Eva someday and try to explain why I couldn't rescue her video cassettes, or Bambi, the Jungle Book, and the School of Vagabonds with somebody doubts it. Pedro Infante and Miroslavla, I can't say it. Eva said that Bambi is a she. Herberto says that it is a he. Eva argued that you could tell it was a she by the eyes. Herberto says that it is a he because of the horns. Besides, at the end, he leaves with his girlfriend. Argues Herberto, who has one can see is not a child but a dwarf. P.S. What that with a broken heart. Oh, I almost died. Remember the scornful jester. Tanati also left, fleeing from the mountains. She had a pair of new white shoes that some good person from somewhere had sent her. Tonati carried the shoes in her hands. "Why don't you put them on?" I asked her after having been rejected for the 9th time from getting a kiss. Quote, "Well, because they will get dirty," end quote. She replied with the inexplicable logic of a 6-year-old girl in the Lakandan jungle. I have not seen her again. P.S. The offers itself AS advisor to the Supreme Government. I, the recurring postscript, recommend that the government withdraw the arrest order against the SUP. The result has been that since he has known that he was pursued, the SUP has been insufferable. And I don't just refer to his obsession with death. As it turns out, he now believes he is John the devil, and is always telling us not to worry, that the twisted one is going to come to save us. But that's not the worst of it. Now he keeps us up all night telling us that he plans to do when he meets up with a certain Monica or such and such Emmy. What does he plan to do? Nothing discourses, believe me. My discretion prevents me from jotting down the details. I tried to dissuade him by telling him his soap opera on TV had ended a long time ago, so then he said he was going to look for Miramar. I remind him of the boycott against Televisa, and he responded that then he was going to go with the kittens of Purcell, arguing against that, telling him that TV Azteca also had asked for his head. The SUP, he murmured something like, someday there will be objective television in this country. He left sleepy, and murmuring, quote, what are we supposed to do? This is where we are supposed to die, in the most transparent region in the air. I told him military plane and Orion were the only cover for his sleeplessness. Veil once again. Health to you, and a small tunnel keepsake for that J.M. Stewart song that ends. It is not that I haven't returned because I have forgotten. It is that I have lost the road to my return. The subdelinquent transgressor of the law, fleeing through the hills, sub Marcos. All right, small break here real quick. Who is this? Communism is the Big 26. I have no idea what that means. Okay, all right. The year of the Zapatistas government, March 17th, 1995. To the men and women who, in different tongues and roads, believe in a more humane future and struggle to achieve it today. Brothers and sisters, there exists on this planet called Earth, and in the continent called America, a country whose shape appears to have had a big bite taken out of its east side, and on the west an arm thrown out deep into the Pacific Ocean so that the hurricanes don't blow it far away from its history. This country is known by both the natives and the foreigners by the name of Mexico. Its history is a long battle between its own desire and to be itself a foreign desire to have it exist under another flag. This is our country. We are blood already in the voices of our oldest grandparents walked this land when it was not yet known by this name, but later in the internal struggle between being and not being, between staying and leaving, between yesterday and tomorrow, it came into the thinking of our ancestors. with the blood of two branches, that this piece of land and water and sky and dreams, a land which we had because it had been a gift from our earlier ancestors, would be called Mexico. We became the other and had more. And then the history of the way that we all got the name was good. And thus all who were born had a name. We were called Mexicans, and they called us Mexicans. Later history continued, delivering blows, giving pain. We were born between blood and gunpowder, and between blood and gunpowder we were raised. We were raised. Even so often, the powerful from other lands came to rob us of tomorrow. For this reason, it was written in a war song that unites us. If foreigners with his step ever dares profane our land, think, who beloved motherland, O beloved motherland, that heaven gave you a soldier and each son. For this reason we fought with flags in different languages, and foreigners came to conquer us. He came and he went. We continued to be Mexicans because we weren't happy with the other name, nor to walk beneath a flag without the eagle devouring a snake, without the white background flanking by green and red. And that's what happened to us. We, the first inhabitants of this land, the indigenous, were left forgotten in a corner, while the rest began to grow and become stronger. We only had our history with which to defend ourselves, and we held it tightly so that we would not die. And that's how this part of history arrived. And it seems like a joke because a single country, the country of money, put itself above all flags. When we uttered globalization, we knew that this was now how the absurd order was going to be called, an order in which money is the only country served, and the borders are erased, not out of brotherhood, but because of the bleeding, the fattens of powerful without nationality. The lie became a universal coin, and for a few in our country, it wove a dream of prosperity above everyone else's nightmare. Corruption and falsehoods were our motherland's principal export. Being poor, we dressed in the wealth of our scarcities, and because the lie was so deep and so broad, we ended up mistaking it for truth. We prepared for the great international forums, and by the will of the government, poverty was declared an illusion that faded before the development proclaimed by economic statistics. We became even more forgotten, and until our history wasn't enough to keep us from dying, just like that, forgotten and humiliated, because death does not hurt. What hurts is to be forgotten. We discovered then that we no longer existed, and those who govern had forgotten about us in their euphoria of statistics and growth rates. The country that forgets itself is a sad country. A country that forgets its past cannot have a future. And so we took up arms and went into the cities where we were considered animals. We went and told the powerful, quote, "We are here." And to the whole country, we shouted, "We are here." And to all the world, we yelled, "We are here." And they saw how things were because in order for them to see us, we covered our faces so that they would call us by name. We gave up our names. We bet the present to have the future and to live. We died. And then came the planes and the bombs and the bullets and death. And we went back to our mountains, and even their death pursued us. And many people from many places said, "Talk." And the powerful said, let's talk. And we said, okay, let's talk. And we talked. And we told them what we wanted, and they did not understand very well. And we repeated that we wanted democracy, liberty, and justice. And they made a face like they didn't understand. And they reviewed their macroeconomic plans and all their neoliberal points, and they could not find these words anywhere. And they said to us, quote, we don't understand. And they offered us a prettier corner in history's museum and a long-term death and a chain of gold with which to tie our dignity. And we so that we would understand our demands, began to organize ourselves according to the wishes of the majority, and so that we could see what it was like to live with democracy, with liberty, and with justice. And this is what happened. For a year, the law of the Zapatistas governed the mountains of the southeastern Mexico. We, the Zapatistas, who have no face, no name, no past, govern ourselves. For the most part, we are indigenous, although lately more brothers and sisters of other lands and races have joined us. All of us are Mexican. We have governed these lands, and we did the following. We lowered to zero the rate of alcoholism. The women here became very angry and sad, and said that alcohol was only good to make the men beat their women and children. Therefore, they gave the order that no drink was allowed. The people who most benefited were the children and women, and the ones who suffered were the businessmen and the government, which support the non-governmental organization, both national and international. Health campaigns were carried out, lifting the hope of life for the civilian population, even though the challenge from the government reduced the hope for life for us combatants. The women were full of the women are a full third of our fighting force. They are fierce and they are armed. And so they convinced us to accept their laws, and that they participated in the civilian and military direction of our struggle. We say nothing. What can we say? The cutting down of trees also was prohibited. The laws were made to protect the forest. It was forbidden to hunt wild animals, even if they belonged to the government. The cultivation, consumption, and trafficking of drugs were also prohibited. These laws were all upheld. The rate of infant mortality became very small, as small as the children. And the Zapatistas' law were applied informally, without regard for social positions or economic level. We made all the major decisions, the strategic ones, of our struggles by means of methods called referendums and plebiscites. We got rid of prostitution. Unemployment disappeared, and with it ended begging. The children came to know sweets and toys. We made many errors and had many failures, but we also accomplished what no other government in the world, regardless of their political affiliation, is capable of doing honestly, recognizing its errors and taking steps to remedy them. We were doing this, learning. When the tanks and the helicopters and the planes and the thousands of soldiers arrived, and they said that they came to defend the national sovereignty, we told them that where sovereignty was being violated was at the IUESAY, and not in Chiapas. The national sovereignty cannot be defended by trampling the rebel dignity of indigenous Chiapas. They did not listen because the noise of their war machines made them deaf, and they came in the name of the government. As for the government betrayal as the ladder by which one climbs to to power, and for us, loyalty is the level playing field that we desire for everyone. The legality of the government came mounted with bayonets, and our legality was based on consensus and reason. We wanted to convince the government. We wanted to convince the government wanted to conquer. We said that no law that had to resort to arms to be carried out could be called a law, that it is arbitrary regardless of its legalese trappings. We who order that a law can be carried out and enforced with weapons is a dictator, even if he says that the majority elected him. And we were run out of our lands. With the war tanks came the law of the government and the law of the Zapatistas left. And once again, prostitutions, drinking, theft, drugs, destruction, death, corruption, sickness, poverty came following the government's war tanks. People from the government came and said that they had now restored law in Chiapas, and they came with bulletproof vests and with their war tanks, and they stayed there just long enough to make their statements in front of the chickens and roosters and pigs and dogs and cows and horses and cats that had gotten lost. And that's what the government did. And maybe you all know this because it's true that many reporters saw this and publicized it. This is the legality, the rules of our lands now. And this is how the government conducted its war of legality and for national sovereignty against the indigenous people of Chiapas. The government also waged war against all other Mexicans, but instead of tanks, planes, they launched economic programs that is also going to kill them, just more slowly. I'm writing this on March 17th, which is St. Patrick's Day. And now I remember that is when Mexico of a century ago was fighting against the empire of the stripes and crooked stars. There was a group of soldiers, a different nationalities, who fought alongside the Mexicans, who called themselves the St. Patrick Battalion. And for this reason, the compañeros said to me, go on, take this opportunity to write to the brothers from other countries and thank them because they stopped the war. I believe that this is their way of getting to go dance. And so that I don't yell at them because the government planes is wandering around up there. And so I am writing you in the name of all the compañeros and the compañeras. Because just like the St. Patrick Battalion, we now see clearly that there are foreigners who love Mexico more than some natives who are now in the government and tomorrow will be jailed or in physical exile because their heart now belong to other lands because they love another flag that is not theirs and another thinks that it is not of their people. We learned that there were marches and songs and movies and other things to prevent war in Chiapas, which is the part of Mexico where it is our lot to live and die. And we learned that these things happen and that no to war was said in Spain, Italy, France, Italy, Germany, Russia, England, Japan, Korea, Canada, the United States, Argentina, Uruguay, Chile, Venezuela, and Brazil, as well as other parts where it wasn't said, but it was thought. And so we saw that there are people in many parts of the world, and that these people live closer to Mexico than those who live in Los Pinos, which is what the house where the government lives is called. Books, medicine, laughter, sweets, and toys flourish under our law. There's the law of the powerful came without any argument other than that of force and destroyed libraries, clinics, and hospitals. I brought sadness and paved a better road for our people. And we thought that the legality that destroys knowledge, health, and happiness is a very small legality for such grand women and men, and that our law is better, infinitely better, than the law of these gentlemen who, with foreign vocations, say that they govern us. So we want to give you all our thanks, and that if we had a flower, we would give one to each of you. But since we don't have enough flowers for each man and woman, then one will have to do. And let each person save a little piece of it. And when they are old, they can talk with the children and young people of their country and say, I struggled for Mexico at the end of the 20th century. And from over here, I was there with them. And I only know that what they wanted is what all human beings want, who have not forgotten that they are human beings and what democracy, liberty, and justice are. And I did not know their faces, but I did know their hearts, and they were the same as ours. And when Mexico is free, which is not to say happy or perfect, but only free, that is free to choose its road, its errors, and its successes, then that part of you that lies at chest level, and despite or previously because of the political implications, it has situated a little to the left, will also be a part of Mexico. And now it occurs to me that with this letter, you can make a paper flower and put it in a buttonhole, or in your hair. And you could go dancing with this enchanting ornament on. And now I'm going to go, because here comes again a plane of wakefulness and for surveillance. And I have to blow out the candle, but not the hope, never, over my dead body. Veil health to you, and the promised flower, a green stem, white petals, red leaves, and don't worry about the serpent, that which flaps its wings as an eagle. It will take care of the snake. You will see. Nice. And let's see, I got 10 more minutes. Let me see how long this one is. 299. Ooh, this one's a little bit longer. I think I can get to this one. 229. I think I might stop here. It's a good stopping point. The next stopping point, so we're stopping on page 299. Zapatistas Guadalapunas, and the Virgin of Guadalupe. What's up, Joe?
All right, so the only thing that I really wanted to draw your attention to that really struck me more than all the rest of everything else that we read, when they were talking about what they had done when they took over the town of Chiapas, and they were talking about all these different rules and laws and how great it was. And it talks about the rate of infant mortality became very small as the children. That was so big, because even, in our more ability to have access to hospitals, we still have that problem.
And then they took it all away again. And then they had to redo it again.
Yep.
I agree that they didn't have and they got rid of the alcohol, because alcohol was causing abuse towards their family and shit. You know?
Yep.
So, and they also put all the women in charge, and they were the leaders again because they were the ones that were coming out with the laws, and they would follow the laws. So that tells you that women, that they were a matriarchal system again, you know, and they counted on women to be leaders. Someone else want to put that into play too. Very matriarchal, it seems like. Anybody else? Anybody else want to say anything else? Or are you good?
The only other thing that struck me is when he was like 10 meters away from the bad guy and like hiding in the woods, and they were throwing up and pooped themselves.
Yeah, things you got to do when you're in
They weren't
the
caught by being
guerrilla warfare. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, they were talking about how they didn't get caught even though they were smelly.
Yep. All right. Does anybody else have anything that wants to come up and say anything? Anybody else? Didn't think so. All right. Well, I will close it down. I appreciate everybody. Sorry about the reading a little bit. So